Hey, Kristen.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Steele.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. We're fixing to eat steak.
I know. I'm already jealous.
It's always a good time. Oh, goodness. Yep, I just pulled it off about 5 minutes ago. So, got one ready.
Perfect.
And you said I'll start probably what, about 3:15?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
10 or 15 after. We already have a bunch of people in the waiting room. Just keeping an eye on Brian Klein. Oh, sorry, you're unmuted.
All right. Well, I'm going to kill the cameras to keep getting things set up around here. So,
Kristen, are you able to talk now? Josh, can you speak or are you muted?
I was muted. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Sweet.
Kristen?
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
I'm sorry.
Can you hear us, Kristen?
Oh, there it is.
Oh, there you go.
Hi.
Hello. Yeah, so I am muting people on entering.
Okay.
But I'll make sure to tell them that.
And then for some reason, I couldn't even hear, but I think it's because I wasn't connected to the audio. I didn't say that I had called in, so I had to connect that way. Ooh, the grill.
yes, won't be long. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to kill my camera for just a minute while I get things set up.
Yeah, no problem.
And I'll get on about 5 after 3 and just start listening for my cue to come in.
Perfect. Thanks, Mike. And Kristen, I just checked again. We're up to 120 people.
Wahoo!
Morning.
No pressure, Josh.
Yeah, on this pitch that I've never practiced, this is going to be awesome. I'm real nervous about it. Oh, man.
Born in the fire, though. You're born in the fire.
Right.
I just always throw it to the steak guy. Let him fumble, right?
Yeah, Mike, if you can just give us like some stuttering at the very beginning or something like that, something to make up for any of my shortfalls, I'd appreciate that.
You'll do great, Josh.
Let's see, Brian Klein.
And Kristen, I'll probably just, like I said, rock it through my slides real quick. And then whenever you get to your slide, I'll just leave it up for you.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool.
And then we turn it over to Mike, right?
Yeah.
Yep. If you could say roll that beautiful bee footage, that would be, I think, the correct way to transition that over.
Okay. Roll that beautiful bee footage.
And guys, how much time, Josh, how much time are you planning on having?
I'm trying to knock it out in 5 minutes or less. I'm going to go fast.
Perfect.
So give Kristen 2 minutes to knock out the green egg promotion. In fact, you know, I'm just gonna delete one of these slides.
30
here real quick.
seconds.
Yeah.
And
So I'll kick it off, do some housekeeping, pass it over to Brian. We'll then pass it over to Josh, and then I'll do a quick intro on Mike. Then we'll get going from there.
okay. It looks like there are some participants jumping in. Tracy, and I don't know if you have to let them in, but it looks like we've got 17 so far.
The only one I wanted to admit is Brian, which I just did. But we've got people on ahead of before even 1 o'clock. I love it.
Do you have to manually and let people enter, Tracy?
Yeah, so I can see the waiting room, and I'll just hit admit all when we hit 1 o'clock.
Okay, got it. And you're going to ask them to put any questions for Mike in the chat, right?
Yep.
Yep, okay, perfect.
Hey, Tracy,
So
can somebody
Hey,
perhaps,
Brian here.
can somebody perhaps read some of the messages? There's a question directly to me in case if we don't see it.
Yep. Yeah, Mike. So I will be monitoring the chat the entire time. So any questions that come up, I'll make sure that I read them aloud.
Sounds great. We appreciate it. Makes it a little easier instead of trying to catch the screen. So,
Yeah, no, you don't worry about it.
okay, thank you.
Hey, Brian.
you guys see my
Hello.
can you guys see my screen if I present there okay?
Yeah.
Any issues? Sweet. All right, cool.
All right. I will start letting people in. All right, hello. Thank you everybody for joining us for our virtual grilling class. Hopefully break up your day a little bit. We'll give it a few minutes for people to join, and then we will go ahead and get started. All right, looks like we've got a lot of folks rolling in. We'll still give it a few more minutes before we hop into it. All right. So I think we're still probably going to have some people join us, but for the sake of time, let's go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody. Happy Thursday. Thank you for joining Extra Hop and Exabeam for this virtual grilling class in the middle of your day, taking time to join us. Hopefully it'll be a nice break for everybody. So just a little bit of housekeeping items. So we have Mike Steele from BBQ Championship Academy. I think I got that right. And he's going to be teaching us how to grill some steaks. We definitely want this to be an interactive experience. So feel free to have your cameras on or off, whatever you prefer. Any questions that you have, please feel free to put those in the chat. Myself and Kristen from Exabeam will be monitoring the chat, or feel free to come to, unmute yourself and shout out questions as they come along as well. With that, and the recording will be available after the event for everybody. We'll send that out so that when you do receive your steaks and rubs after this event, you will be able to watch the recording for another little refresher and go along with Mike while you cook your own steaks. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian Klein, who's our Pacific AVP for Extra Hop, to go over a quick little Extra Hop overview.
Great. Thanks, Tracy. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Is my screen showing okay?
It is.
Excellent. All right. Thanks. Hi, everybody. Brian Klein here. I got 5 minutes to run through this, and I'm going to try to land the plane on time here. So, Extra Hop. We are helping our customers reclaim the upper hand against advanced threats by offering a cloud-native network detection and response solution. From core to cloud, we're able to help our customers detect compromises and avoid those from becoming full-scale breaches. So want to encourage everybody to think for just a second about what kind of impact it would be on their security operations if they could stop advanced threats 84% faster. 84 is a bit of a peculiar number. Why not 85? It actually comes from an IDC survey of many of our customers, a cross-section of different types of enterprises. And that's the number that everybody, that the average arrived at. By eliminating blind spots with complete coverage across the network, detecting threats that other tools aren't designed to detect or simply miss, and giving you the ability to respond faster to incidents with confidence. So the space we're in, the problem we solve is that 70% dark space, where it's the east-west traffic, where the covert threats exist. It happens that 67% of encrypted traffic is now can be malicious, or malicious traffic is encrypted. We still have 56 days, nearly 2 months of dwell time before attackers are found. And that's where our opportunity is to help our customers detect the compromises and stop the breaches. It's in that window of time. And it's simply, a really devastating dwell time when you think about it. And the really advanced attackers have abilities to evade logs in that east-west corridor. Now, that is not to say that logs and event management and EDR, for that matter, aren't critically important. They are. They're foundational. But where they don't exist, where you may not be logging, where you may not be deploying endpoints, as an example, an IoT device, the attackers do have to use the network to get there. And that's where we come in, seeing everything on the network in your east-west corridor, again, from core to the cloud. So we exist as a foundational component in any security operation, along with the security event management and EDR solution sets. Gartner coins the phrase the cyber visibility triad of being made up of NDR, SIM, and EDR. And Extra Hop exists to be a part of that NDR component. And this is where the covert threats meet a covert defense, because they don't notice that we're on the network. They can't turn us off, and you can't erase the network. So with that, I'm going to transition out here and hand it over to our friends at Exabeam. This last slide is just a little bit of eye candy on how our solution presents itself. And if you have any more questions and want any more detail, feel free to reach out to myself, Tracy, or your regional sales manager, and we're happy to talk with you more about it. All right, stop share.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate the nice handoff there. Let's share my screen. Everyone see everything and hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, so Exabeam, Fusion Sim, and OpenXDR. What we're trying to do right here is provide a platform to give you effective outcome-based threat detection and incident response that enables you to leverage and enhance the existing tools inside your security stack without forcing you to rip and replace them to centralize on a single vendor. We're here to help SOCs and security analysts standardize around the best practices. Fusion Sims include prescribed end-to-end workflows, prepackaged content to help you focus on specific threat use cases and types to achieve better threat detection incident response. So why would you go with us? So we do a lot of different things here. We're unifying the best-in-class detection, so you get all that standard UEBA that you're used to seeing with Exabeam, that Gartner quadrant leading kind of stuff. We're adding effective threat detection incident response to any security stack, so you're not locked into individual vendors, and we're helping you provide detections maybe missed by other tools, deliver outcomes with the end-to-end threat and prescriptive threat-centric use cases. So if you need malware, if you need insider threat, if you need whatever it is, we have a prescribed way to get you from your log sources all the way to investigating and triaging those specific types of use cases. And then boosting SOC productivity, decreasing your response times, automated timelines, automated response, SOAR, all that good stuff inside there, you name it. And then again, this whole thing's cloud delivered. So you're reducing your FTE overload and reducing your maintenance that you need in order to keep the system up and running. The threat-centric use cases, delivering those outcomes, so really what Exabeam is trying to do is give you a platform, a SIM platform that's helping you go from all the way from your collection, what logs you should bring in, what tools should you integrate with in order to enhance your use case that you're specifically looking at in order to increase your defense in depth, all the way through your detections, all of our pre-built out stuff. We map directly with the MITRE mapping. We're MITRE contributors inside of there. So everything that you see inside of your console as you're looking at it is directly related to standard known security best practices. Your triaging, auto use case creation will help you prioritize and risk rate your alerts as they're coming into your platform to show you and bubble up exactly what you need to be looking at. Your investigation and response, we're helping repeatable platforms inside of that between the SOAR, turnkey playbooks, task lists, case management tools, all integrated inside of a platform to help you get end-to-end faster and quicker. Real quick peek at our UI that we have going on here. This is some of those timelines, alert triage. It really is going from the alert you see there at the top in the black all the way through to who a user is, to what normal looks like for them, to what their risk trend is, and then taking all of the events that are associated with them and putting them together in a single timeline that your analysts can quickly review in order to get your triage and your results and answers faster. And then finally, Extra Hop and Exabeam. This is a match made in heaven, and you guys would not be remiss by looking at both products here together. We have a ton of content out of the box specifically for Extra Hop, and really the possibilities that you can do with us are endless. Anything from something as simple as taking the alerts from Extra Hop and putting them inside the case management tool, to taking very specific events that Extra Hop detects and putting them in an asset and user timelines, really giving you that full picture and those two corners of the triad that was mentioned, or that Brian mentioned earlier, with the SIM and EDR and NDR tools there inside that. So again, quick through on there, OpenXDR, SIM, cloud delivered, great use cases inside of there, UEBA, all the kind of stuff you're looking for inside of there in one package. Come in, check it out. If you have any questions, hit up Kristen, who I'll hand it over to now with our next bit of fun.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Josh. Well, Exabeam and Extra Hop are truly better together. So wanted to let everybody know we have an exclusive offer for those of you who attended and joined us today. So thank you so much. When you schedule a 30-minute Exabeam demo, you will be entered to win a big green egg to go along with the theme of today's grilling class. So all demo attendees will also get a $50 Amazon gift card. So if there's someone here from your company that didn't get to join us today, as long as they attend the demo, they'll get the $50 Amazon gift card, and they'll get a fantastic 30-minute demo to show you further about our storyline. So thank you so much. And with that, we will turn it over to Mike Steele, CEO of BBQ Champs Academy. So Mike,
Hello,
take it away.
everybody. Certainly glad to be here today. It looks like we've got quite a few folks here. My name is Mike Steele. I am the pit master of the Pigs and Cows Gone Wild competition barbecue team out of Shreveport, Louisiana. And I'm about to be a 4-time Louisiana state champ. The point chase ends in about 30 days, or 25 days, 26 days, the point chase will end. And I'm so far ahead in the points, it looks like I've got it wrapped up again. So it's 3 straight years. So I have a lot of fun doing competition barbecue. And as Tracy just said, I am also the founder of BBQ Champs Academy. It's the world's first online tell-all barbecue cooking classes that are taught by world champion pit masters and world champion steak grill masters, some of the best pit masters and grill masters in the entire United States. So we love to barbecue. It's a lot of fun. I love cooking steaks. It's probably one of my wife's favorite. Hey, let's cook some steaks. You know, who doesn't like a good ribeye steak? So I'm going to try to show you some things about a steak that you may never have known, what to look for and how to select it. And also we're going to cover 2 championship rubs that are used. One of them was used by the 2018 Steak Cook-Off Association World Champion, Mr. Terry Rome. And the other one was the 2019 Points Chase runner-up, Mr. John Lindsay. When you pair the 2 together, they are absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, you have the ability to give messages in the chat, but I think I also heard Tracy say, hey, if you've got a question and you want to unmute and say it, please do so, because I love to get people involved. Whether it's about steak, I don't care if it's about brisket, ribs, pork butt, chicken, any of them. I will certainly go into detail about that because I'm pretty diverse in all of that. So without further ado, let's get started.
And Mike, I'm going to interrupt you real fast.
Okay.
So just a few things. So yes, as Mike said, we'll be monitoring the chat, but feel free to unmute yourselves and call out there anything. No barbecue topic is off limits. And then you will be getting a recording of this following the event, along with the 2 ribeyes and rubs that you'll be receiving, so that you can make those in real time along with at home with Mike. And then yes, so for to make him full screen, you just go up top and view speaker view, and he should be full screen for everybody. But with that, Mike, let's take it away.
Let's do it. All right, so I've got 2 inch and 8 thick prime ribeyes. Now I'm going to talk real quick about it being a prime, and I'm just going to ask a couple questions, see if anybody knows it. There's a few grades of meats. There's 3 that we typically see in the grocery stores just about everywhere, and there's one that's even a higher end grade of meat, and you don't see them very often in stores. Maybe some of your bigger high-end stores may have it. Does anybody know the 3 different grades of meat and what it means?
I think one of them's grade D.
Great. All right, so
you've got, you go choice, select choice, prime, and then Wagyu is off the scale.
there you go. The worst would be select, absolutely 100%. Select is your worst grade, and what that is, there's very little fat in the meat, and we're talking about intramuscular fat, not fat on the outside, not fat around the edge, the fat that's in the meat. We'll get another camera up here and we'll talk about that. Very, very little fat that's in that meat. The next one up is choice. Now you will start to see some marbling or some intramuscular fat that's in there. You go from a choice, then you go into a prime. Usually a prime is going to be pretty well marbled. And then, as he said, you get into Wagyu. I mean, it is, I've seen some Wagyu steak. Sometimes it is 60% meat and 40% fat. And it is just this rich, buttery flavor that will melt in your mouth. So here's the one thing about fat and what it does. Fat, number 1, will add juiciness to the steak. It will also make the steak more tender, especially when you're dealing with the ribeye. A lot of people like ribeyes because they tend to have more fat than like a sirloin or a New York strip. That's why it's probably one of the most sought after steaks. So that was good. I'm glad that you got that. Now let's dive into a little bit, and we're going to talk about how to select a ribeye steak, because all ribeye steaks are not the same. And we're going to talk a bit about that right now. So we're going to switch over here to a camera that's a little bit closer, and I want to kind of show you the difference in these 2 steaks. So the first one up is, now this one is prime, and you can see all the marbling in this. They were in the same package, but this one to me just didn't quite have as much marble in it. It still had some. This may be an upper 2/3 choice. I think they kind of snuck something in here, and I don't really think that's quite a prime. It's not as much fat as I like to see. This one was really nice. So this is what we're talking about. If you were to see a select, it would look basically like just this. No fat throughout this whole section of meat. And they're just not a very good steak. It's not going to have a lot of juice in it, and it's not going to be near as tender. It won't have as much flavor. So let's talk about the two steaks. This is both are ribeyes, but this is a spinalis steak. Some people may call it a rib cap. It's got a rib cap, or most everybody calls it a spinalis. This is the most tender, flavorful part of the entire steak. So what I'm looking for, if I'm picking a steak and it's a spinalis, I'm wanting one that's going to wrap around from here all the way around and be nice and thick. The one that I actually cooked, it was not very thick. It was only probably a 1/2 inch seam around here, and it was a very small spinalis. But I wanted to show you, this is the one that you want in a spinalis steak, because this is the most flavorful, tender part there is. When we do competitions, we're going to put this to the front of the box where the judges are going to bite and eat off of this section. So this is what that one looks like. Now, the other steak is called a tri-heart. So you still see that it's got a spinalis. But if you notice, this spinalis is a lot wider and a lot thicker, and it wraps around just about as far, but it's a lot more spinalis. But it also has another little muscle over here, and this is a nice, it's usually about the size of your thumbnail. This is a tri-heart steak. So you have a very tender muscle here. This is like a delicate bite right here. You have all of this that is good, and then this is the third muscle. So you have the spinalis, the chuck, and then the eye.
And hey, Rick, or
And
Mike, sorry, we have, looks like we've got a quick question. What's the difference between these and then the cuts that are still on the bone? Is it better to have a cut without the bone or with, or what's the difference?
Okay, so that's a good question. The steak will actually be the same. That bone runs right here, and they have actually cut it off. I typically buy a boneless ribeye. I do not want that bone on there. It's going to be a little cheaper per a pound, but I have no idea how much that bone's going to weigh. And all I'm going to do is cut that bone and throw it away anyway. These steaks cook so fast that that bone is not going to add any flavor to this steak at all. So I always buy boneless ribeyes. I do not buy the one with the bone. I bought them sometimes, and then the bone will be a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch wide. By the time I throw it away, the dang bone felt like it weighed well over a 1/2 pound. And these steaks are $16, $17, $18 a pound. If you get prime, you're looking at $19 a pound. I don't want to be paying for a 10-pound bone. So I prefer not to use a bone-in ribeye. I am looking for a boneless ribeye. But that is a great question. But the biggest thing is, between these two steaks, if I am at the grocery store and I am looking, I always try to find a tri-heart steak. The reason is, it has got a bigger spinalis. It's got the baby tri, and this is a really, really good tri. A lot of times they'll only be maybe about the size of a penny. This one's about the size of a quarter, maybe a little bit bigger. And this has got a lot of marbling. That is a really, really nice looking ribeye steak. Sometimes, and I had one we did in the class last week, you can get lucky enough to find it. I have seen this spinalis literally run all the way down to here. It won't have this hard fat in it. This cow just had a lot of fat in it. And this typically a lot of times will be all spinalis. So this whole thing here will be spinalis. You'll have a little eye, and then you have your chuck. That is the premium one to select. So if you are at a butcher and you are looking for steaks, try to get one, number one, that's at least 1 1/8 inches thick. Number two, you always want to pick a tri-heart steak, and you can identify it because it's going to have 3 different distinct muscle groups. Here's one, once again, that is just the spinalis steak. If they don't have them, and a lot of times, you're not going to be able to find a tri-heart. If you cannot find it, you still got to get a steak. Try to find one that's got a very, very big, wide spinalis that goes around. Okay? Always
And we have
at least a choice.
the difference between dry aged.
Dry age. Well, there's a lot of people that'll dry age. Yeah, there's some people that'll dry age the steak. The thing is, when you start dry aging the steak, number one, it'll add a little bit more beefy flavor to it. That's the first thing I know. Sometimes it does tend to make them a little bit more tender. But the thing that I notice I always buy certified Angus beef, calf, and certified Angus beef prime steaks have a very, very good beefy flavor, and it doesn't get too far out of bounds where it's just so overpowering with the beef flavor. So I typically do not dry age any of my steaks. I just get them, I bring them home, they're fresh cut, and then at that point, I'm ready to cook. No, the rubs, as far as you're doing that, won't matter. We're going to apply the same amount of rub on this steak, whether if it was a dry age or if it is just right out of the package.
We're getting ahead of
And then, so we're getting a few other questions here, Mike. So one of them touches on the correct temperature to use on the grill, which I'm assuming we're going to touch on later.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The other ones is there a flavor difference between grass-fed and grain-fed?
Yes, you will. Like the certified Angus beef, a lot of times they will mix them up. It'll be grass and then it'll be grain-fed. So a lot of times they may feed them a lot of grain, and then after that they take them and they go grass-fed. A lot of times you'll be able to notice because it'll be a lot whiter fat. We see that a lot, especially in briskets. A lot of times if you look at that fat cap on the bottom of the brisket, it'll be real yellow. We look for a really nice white fat cap on the bottom of a brisket. But yeah, those are all really good questions. I like a good certified Angus beef. To me, it seems like they do a better job of raising them. And you just get more depth of flavor, I think, with the certified Angus beef. I've tried a lot of different ones, but that is my absolute favorite.
this one.
Perfect. And then Charlie said he missed the name, the one with the 3 parts of the ribeye. Tri-heart, correct? Oops. I accidentally muted Mike.
Mike, you're muted.
Sorry, that was my fault. I muted everybody else. Oh,
There we go. We're good.
sorry about that, Mike. That was my fault.
Okay. Some people like this fat, but this is a really, really hard fat, and it is not going to render out because this steak literally will take 4 minutes and 45 seconds to 5 minutes and 15 seconds to cook. And we're going to explain that cooking process. But the main thing I wanted to show everybody was which steak to get. They're both ribeyes. Always go to a tri-heart. That's the number one steak to
You
get.
got any thoughts on big box meats? Here in SoCal, Costco carries prime.
Yeah, primes are good. I don't like the steak flavor from stuff like Walmart. Costco does pretty good. I actually got these at Sam's, and Sam's has some pretty good meats. It seems like they get fresher meat in that's cut. So Sam's is good. Costco, they have some pretty good select meat as well. If I can get certified Angus beef, I'm always going for certified Angus beef. And I always get a prime. I just do not want to play around with something that doesn't have a lot of marbling in it. So with that said, let's get to trimming. So the first thing is I don't want any hard fat up here on the front because like I said, this is the delicate part. This is the most tender, flavorful part of the ribeye there is. So I don't want to cut in and bite into a real big piece of fat. So I've got a little fat that's right here. And all I'm going to do is I've got a really sharp knife, and this is a Gunter Wilhelm, Gunter Wilhelm, Wilhelm. This is their Lightning Pro Cut Series knife. It's their little 3.5-inch paring knife. These things are wicked, wicked sharp, and they hold a bit edge as good as some of my really high dollar shuns.
Not pertaining to you as you're doing that. Somebody wants to know about a brisket. They want to know if you do fat side up or down on the grill. And do you wrap the brisket with butcher paper?
Okay.
And at what temp do you wrap?
Okay, so we got a question about brisket. So I always cook my briskets fat side down. and I cook them to an internal temperature of 158 degrees. If I was cooking on a pellet cooker, I would take it to 160, 162 degrees. I do not wrap in peach paper. I actually wrap in foil, and then I let it rest for 2 hours. And then after it rests, I take it out of the foil, put it back on the smoker for 15 minutes, and that firms that bark up. And then I go get my trophy, because brisket is by far my #1 category in all my competition stuff I do. All right, so let's get on to trimming up this steak. We got a lot of hard fat here, and I'm going to show you one thing. This spinalis, if you take this fat off all the way to here, it'll kick out and come apart on you. So you want to leave a little bit of fat right in here to hold this spinalis together. If you cut it off right here, this whole thing will come apart. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to just cut this right here. See, I left just enough there to hold it together. This is the tail of the ribeye. It's all fat. I don't want this flaring up. This whole piece is broke off over here. It's got one little bitty bite of meat right here. I don't even want to fool with that. If you wanted to try to take the time to tie it, you could. But first, I'm going to get rid of this hard piece of fat here. Not a whole lot I can really do with this. If you wanted to cut the fat off and then pull this around and tie it, you could. It's going to cook at a really different temperature, but we could do it like that. Because that's going to flop around, you would probably have to tie it. So we got butcher twine that you can put around it, and that'll take care of it. We got a little bit of fat over here on this good spinalis meat. So I'm just going to barely get on that edge. I'll take all this off. Now we got a little bit right in here, and I want to get that off as well. Once again, I'm very picky about that. Some people like the fat. I don't want to bite into a big old chunk of fat. I want to taste the flavor of the meat. Now, fat is flavor. I ain't going to argue there. But to me, I just want to get it off. And that is all I'm looking for. This piece right here, just to me, it bothers me. I would never cook my steak with this. I may just take this and throw it over to the side. I'm going to go ahead and take it off because I can get, it's just got a lot of fat in here, fat over here. It's got a fat seam in here. It's just not going to be a very pleasant bite. So now that I've got that done, I've got my ribeye. I've got this nice, beautiful teardrop shape to it.
That could be for the dog.
There you go. It could be for the dog. You could take that, just grill it off a few minutes, and it'll be done. It'll be perfect treats for the dog. But just for me to eat that, put that on a plate for my wife to eat, it's got a fat seam that runs here. It's fat over here. It's got a lot of silver skin here. It's got one little bite right here, and it's even got a fat seam in it. I don't really want to have to contend with it. So there's my steak. I've got the fat off around it. I've got a nice shape to it. I've got a little bit of fat right here, and that holds that spinalis from kicking out. Now then, let's move over real quick to our tri-heart. Same thing. I got a big old blob of meat hanging here. That's not going to do anything. That's a good treat for the dog. So we can go ahead and cut this off. Here's the tail. Once again, it's just nothing but a bunch of fat on this end. So I'm just going to follow the natural shape of the steak. I'm going to come right around here. And I'm just going to follow the natural shape of the steak, and I'm going to take that fat right off. I don't want to eat any of that. I don't want flare-ups on my grill. All that's coming off. Once again, we got a spinalis that comes around here. I want to make sure that I don't cut this little piece of fat off here, so I can get a little off right here. Not much, because I sure don't want to take too much off where I take my fat off holding my steak together. That's about all I'm going to get off. I'll come around. Once again, we got a lot of fat up here. I see a lot of silver skin. That'll be a horrible bite to eat. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to cut this off. I'm going to cut this off. Like I said, it really helps to have a really good sharp knife. These Gunter Wilhelm knives are just some of the best that I've ever found. And the price of these things are just this. I can't remember what this knife costs, but I think it's under $30. And they are very, very sharp knives. And that's it. Got a little bit of meat hanging out here. And we'll just cut that off because that's just gonna come apart when I'm cooking it. Got a little fat right here on this front. I got to be careful here. It's got a big fat pocket here, but if I take this fat off here, then that eye right there is just going to completely kick out. So I've got to leave that to hold that eye in place. So be very careful when you're cooking a tri-heart that you don't take that out. And that's it. Got a nice shape. I just took the hard fat off the outside. I took the tail off. Got all that done. I got everything the way I want it. Steak looks great.
Is that what they use to make cap ribeye?
Yeah, the cap ribeye, that's what I was saying just a second ago, is spinalis. This is called, we call it a spinalis. Another word is the rib cap. And that's exactly what that is. So, all right, well, we got all this done. It's time to go in and layer some flavors. Now, a lot of people may just use a salt, pepper, garlic rub. That's good on a steak. We try to get more layers of flavor where it's not overpowering. And we never, ever use what we call a simple store-bought rub because they are so full of salt that you just can't hardly put any rub on it. If you do, it's just going to be a salt lick and it'll be horrible. You're going to see me put a lot of rub on these steaks. You're going to go, oh my gosh, they're going to be so salty. But actually, they will not be because it's the blend of the way that these rubs were made. This has got some salt, but it's got butter bulbs. It's got a little garlic. It's got some black pepper in it. And this is our first base that we put on. This is all queued up steak shape. And this is John Lindsay that developed this. He has just been absolutely killing it. He's got a lot of steak cookers that are using this on his team. And it is a very, very well-balanced rub. It is our first layer that goes on the steak. So the first thing I do is I get these steaks out. I trim them while they're ice cold. Okay, that's very important. Hard to trim steaks when they are hot. You want to trim them when they're cold. You got a question?
What are your thoughts on reverse searing smoked thin grilled pork crust?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. We kind of cheat a little bit. We don't do a reverse sear where it's on the smoker. I'm going to talk about that, and I'll answer that question here in just a second because I'm going to tell you how we set these steaks up to get ready to go on the grill. We never put a cold steak on the grill. So a lot of times people will reverse sear one, get it up to 105 degrees. We actually will put our steaks on when they're between 90 and 95 degrees. And I'll show you how we go about warming these steaks up. So let's get over to getting some rub on them, and then we'll dive into a few of these questions that everybody's asking. So we're going to start first with the spinalis steak. This is the tri-heart. And this is the all queued up steak shake. I kind of start over here, and it looks like a lot. I know it is a lot when you see it go on, but it will hold a lot of rub on this steak for the simple reason that it is not overpowering with salt, and you have got to kind of hit it pretty hard. I want to go around that rib, that spinalis. I do not rub it in. I pat it. Never rub a rub. I'm going to lift it up here, and I'm going to go around the edge. I want to make sure that I got flavor on that outside edge as well. I'm going to go all the way around the steak. And you could roll it over here if you wanted to as well. I like to just sprinkle it on, but pat it in.
No binder for the grill? I
really don't put much of a binder on it. Sometimes I'll put 3 or 4 drops of Worcestershire sauce and just pat it in. But these steaks have got so much moisture in them that I just don't feel that it needs it. I don't want my rub to get mushy because it's wet. I want the natural juice of the steak to, it's got a little bit of salt in this, and what it's going to do, it's going to start pulling that moisture up, and then the reverse osmosis will pull that back down, and as it pulls it back down, it's going to flavor that meat throughout. Also remember this is an 1 1/8 thick steak. The thicker the steak, you can go a little bit heavier on the rub because it's a thicker steak, right? You got to penetrate that rub down through it. So don't be afraid to put it put this much rub on. It's not over salt. It's just a nice, good, even coat. You can barely, I mean, you can barely even see the meat. That's it. I can still see the meat, but it's not just caked on. And give it a little pat. If it was maybe a 3/4 inch steak, I would probably go just a little bit lighter. Coming over here to this one, I'll just set this one off to the side so you can see it. I'm gonna go ahead and hit my sides first. This is the tri-heart. Nice even coat. And then we'll come in and give it a layer. I always start off the cutting board where I can get a good even coat. Give it a little pat. Don't rub it, pat it. I like to put my rubs on the steaks about 45 minutes to an hour before they're going to go on the grill. Nice even coat. And a little pat. I like to wait about 10 minutes between this rub, the all queued up steak shake, and the next one that we're going to do, which is the Be Extreme Steak Dust. That one's the one that was developed by the 2018 World Champion. So just pat this on, set this one off to the side. You notice the first thing I did also is I took my glove off. I do not ever cross-contaminate any of my rub bottles. If I have been touching meat and I go to grab a bottle of rub, I don't care if anything that I'm doing in barbecue, I'm going to pull my glove off and I am going to make sure that I am not cross-contaminating any of my bottles, because I just get sick when I see people take these rubs. They've got their hands all in the meat, especially when it's chicken, and then they take it and they grab the bottle, and next thing you know, it goes in their kitchen cabinet. I just can't deal with it. So always use a clean hand. Another thing you can do is you can take one of these gloves and you can slip it over the bottle on the bottom, and that way you're holding the glove. So that's another way. All right, so the next steak is Be Extreme Steak Dust. This was developed by the 2018 Steak Cook-Off Association World Champion, Mr. Terry Rome. This steak dust is very, very good. It's got a little bit more color to it. It's still got some salt, but it's got a little brown sugar in it. It's got some garlic, some black pepper. It's got some paprika in it. And it's just a very, very, very well-balanced rub, and it brings a lot of flavor to the steak. I'm not going to go quite as heavy as I did with the steak shake, but I'm still going to give it a pretty good coat. Just not quite as heavy. Add it in. Then I'll come over here and we'll just go around. I still want to get a little bit on that outside edge. Get a little pat. We'll come over here. Same thing. Nice light little coat. If you don't like a salty steak, back off just a little bit on both the rubs. Sneak up on it. I like a steak that's got a little pop. I want to be able to taste that flavor of all these rubs. If you don't like that, you can back off just a little bit. Come back over here. Like I said, I would normally wait about 10, 15 minutes between each one of these rubs. I want to start seeing that first one start to sweat in. But it's not going to hurt anything if you're in a hurry. You need to get it on, you can. See that? You can see we had a lot of rub on that steak just a minute ago, and you can see it's just done completely dissolved right into that steak. And then we're going to come back with the steak dust. Nice even coat. Give it a little pat. One more.
How do you season it for competition? And somebody else said bring the salt.
There you go. Bring the salt. Salt wins. Salt is flavor, and salt will win competition. So pretty much, well, what you see for competitions, these are the first two rubs that we put on the steak, and just this heavy. The all queued up steak shake, I would have probably put one more little light pass across it. I don't want to blow y'all's mind with the rubs that you see going on, but to give it a little bit of pop, what you saw there, it would probably be just another very, very light coating on top of that, just a little bit more. This rub, same way. I would probably want just a touch heavier on this steak than with what you've seen here if I was in a competition using that. And we have one other rub that John will finish his steak out with. I don't use it when I'm at the house. For competitions, they do. He'll come back across it with the all queued up, big red beef. And he'll come back and it just gives it another depth of flavor. And it'll be just like a light little coat right across the top of this. And that's it.
Someone wants to know, as you're cooking it for the grill, do you use both rubs and then add salt as well?
No.
Or is the rub just?
No, this is it. What you see right here will get you there. If you feel like you need a little bit more salt, just add a little bit more of these rubs, but that's going to get you really close with a nice, good, salty steak. So we've got that done. I'm going to show you the one thing now that we do once we get that rub applied. I want that rub on at least 45 minutes. I want the rub on for at least 45 minutes. I like to give it an hour. But as soon as I get done with them, I get me a gallon Ziploc bag. Go to that camera up here, baby. And
Tell them why you go so heavy on that for a competition. They get more money.
okay, so first thing I'm going to do is now that I've got them on, I get me a gallon Ziploc bag, and I'm going to put them in a Ziploc bag. I'm going to be careful that I don't knock my rub around. Try to keep that on. I'm going to push the air out. I'm going to close it up. And I'm going to get those steaks up to 90 to 95 degrees. We have found in the steak competition world that the protein, when it hits the grill between 90 and 95 degrees, number one, the steak cooks really, really fast. It does not take long at all. Usually it's about 5 to 5.5 minutes cooking on grill grates that are 550 to 575 degrees. I think what's happening is that protein when these things get to 90, 95 degrees, that steak will be really, really soft. Somebody asked a question just a minute ago about doing a reverse sear in the smoker. Yeah, you can do a reverse sear in the smoker. You can get a little more smoke flavor if you're looking for smoke. That's one way to get more of a smoky flavor in it. I will literally take these, and in competitions, you'll see people have these sitting on the dash of their truck if it's in the summertime. They'll put it in a bag and they'll sit it up in the dash of their truck. I've seen people take, and in the wintertime, they'll turn their defrosters on, they'll put it at max heat, and they'll set it up on the dash of the truck. So that's one way to warm it up. You can take it outside with the table sitting outside in the sun. Table's going to get really hot. Put it on the table, come fill it, flip it over maybe 30 minutes into it, fill it. We've got a temp pin that we're going to show you here in a second, and I'll just probe it. I'll open my bag up, I'll poke it. Yeah, okay, we're getting 90, 95 degrees. Once I do that, I just kind of take it out of the sun and just kind of put it in the shade. I'm ready at that point. When they get to that temperature, it's time to get them on the grill. I usually will get my grill ready, lit, get my grill grate on. Takes about 15, 20 minutes, and I'm ready to start cooking. But that is the one thing that we love to do. I think you'll find a big difference in not only the texture, but the tenderness of the meat when you bring that temperature up. So it's not reverse searing it in a smoker, say at a low temperature. It's just it's a way of cheating to actually make it seem like we're reverse searing it. We're using the sun to do it instead of having to fire up a smoker to do it.
They're ready to know if charcoal, lump, or stick barbecue for competition.
Okay, so if it's a barbecue question, let's answer that here in just a second, because I want to kind of get on over here and finish up the steak part, and then we'll dive into a lot of the competition stuff. But for me, I use hickory lump in my competitions with big chunks of hickory wood, 3 pieces of hickory, and then I'll add a piece of pecan. So it's a mixture of both hickory and pecan. So I want to kind of show you real quick how we set up our grill. I want to talk a little bit about the grill grates that we use for this. This is really, really important. And I'm going to show you how we actually get beautiful crosshatch marks on our steaks. So with that said, we're going to switch over to another camera, and we will take a peek at that. So I've got a 22-inch Weber kettle. A lot of the competition guys will use PK grills. Is a very popular grill. It's been around since the late 40s or early 50s. I've got one that's about a 1952 model. But the PK grills are very popular in state competitions. The M16 is one bad hombre. It is solid stainless steel. It's got a gasket around the lid. It is a cooking machine. The Hasty Bake Ranger is also another really good cooker. But I'll tell you right now, it's hard to beat a good old $120 Weber 22-inch kettle. So what I'll typically do is I will.
I want to know if does this temperature trick work for tri-tip as well?
Yeah, it would work with any type of steak, whether it's tri-tip, whether it is ribeye, sirloin, doesn't matter. I just think when you put that steak on and it's warm, it's going to help with the texture of the meat, and you're not having to cook it as long on the grill. The longer it stays on this grill, the more you have a tendency of drying that steak out. So great question though. Yeah, you can use it on any cut of beef. So get you a chimney starter like this. You fill it up with your charcoal. Once you get your charcoal in, I use two little starter cubes. These are little tumbleweeds. I'm sure everybody's got their favorite, but I'll like two of those. I'll have this completely full of charcoal. I'll put this on. I'll let it go 25, 30 minutes till it's completely glowing hot. Once it gets completely glowing hot, I'm going to take it. I'm going to dump it in my grill. I'm going to spread it all out on my coals where I've got a nice good bed of coals everywhere. And then I'm going to drop my grill grate. So this is kind of how I do it. Sometimes I will taper it. I'll have a little bit more here and I'll taper it. The reason I like to taper it is it may be hotter here. Down here on this end, it may not be quite as hot. So it gives me different temperatures on my grate. So I kind of tier shape it. It'll be wide here and then the coals will taper off a little bit. That's the trick that we do in competition. That way, if I'm cooking on this grill, I may have my grill grate right here and it may be 650 degrees, but down here on this end, it may be 550 to 575. And that's typically where I like my temp to be. These are grill grates. You can get them at grillgrate.com. These are absolutely awesome for cooking steak, hamburgers, chicken. It keeps flare-ups from coming through your grill, especially on chicken. It's got little holes that will allow the grease to drip, but at the same time, it keeps the major flames from coming up. We also get one of these little temp guns. This is a laser temp gun that we buy. I bought this one at Harbor Freight. It shoots a little red beam. And with that little red beam, I don't know if, yeah, you can see it. We shoot the temperature on top of the grill, on top of the rail, and I'm looking for about 550 to 575 degrees. I'm going to kind of check it in an area where my steak's going to drop. If I'm cooking 2 or 3 of them at one time, not a whole lot you can do. I try to keep my charcoal real even at that point. I may not taper it, and I'm just going to try to get it up to probably around 575 degrees. If it's a little hotter on one end than the other, that's okay. You just have to adjust your flip time. And we're going to talk about flip times. How long do you cook each one of these steaks and how you go about flipping them? So let's dive into that. I'm going to grab one of these steaks out of the package. Obviously, I'm going to get this finale steak because the tri-heart steak is so tender, it'll have a tendency of wanting to come apart. So here's our steak. We got our grill grates. Got these things going now at 575 degrees. My coals are hot. I got my grates on. It takes about 10, 15 minutes to get these up to temperature. And then I'm going to drop this steak on here. Right before I drop it, I'll take some kind of Pam cooking spray, olive oil spray, and just give it a real light spray on the rail. And that's it. I don't want it coated. I just want a very light little mist on it. I'm going to go drop my steak on it. Now, there's different kinds of steaks. You can put diamonds on it and you can put squares. If you want squares, you'll drop it this away and this away. If you want diamonds, we call it 10 and 2. It'll go here and it'll go here. And we can put marks on it that way. Today, I chose to do diamonds. So the way that we'll do it is we'll get this at 550, 575 degrees. I'm going to take this steak. I'm going to put it at like the 10 o'clock or the 10 o'clock position this away. I'm going to put it on. I'm going to press it down with my hand, or they got a little weight that weighs about 2 pounds. It's a little steak weight. You can put it on it, but I always just take my hand. I press it down for about 30 seconds. and I start a timer. Now, this is very, very important. When this steak is at 90, 95 degrees, and these grates are at 550, 575 degrees, this steak is going to cook in less than about 5 minutes or less. This is an 1.125" steak. It's going to be right at about 5.5 minutes. But I will drop that steak and I will let it go for 1 minute and 40 seconds. At 1 minute and 40 seconds, I'm going to lift it up. I'm going to brush these grates with a wire brush to get the rub off, and I'm going to set it right back down on the other side, still going at 10 o'clock. I'm going to press it down with my hand. I'm going to start it with my stopwatch, and I'm going to go once again about 1:40 to 1:45 seconds. About 1:45 is going to be pretty good. If this grate is 650 degrees, you're going to probably be about 1:15 seconds, because if you don't, it's going to char it. Every time that you flip it, you give it a little spray. So with some Pam or olive oil. So it'll be another 1:45 seconds. Then I'm going to lift it up. I'm going to flip it back over. I'm going to wipe my grate. I'm going to spray it. And then I'm going to come back over here, and then I'm going to go to the 2 o'clock position. I will tell you, it's got lines here. The lines are, if you line the lines up that you see, you line them up parallel to these, and it'll give you perfect diamonds. So I'll put it back on. I'm going to press it down for about 20, 30 seconds. I'm still running my grates at 550s, 575, about 1:45 seconds. I'm going to lift it up. I'm going to brush it. I'm going to give it a little spray of Pam. I'm going to come right back over here again. And as soon as I put it down, the first thing I'm going to do at that point is I'm going to get my Thermopin. Now, this is an MK4 Thermopin, and this is an instant read. It'll typically read in like 2 seconds. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to probe it. It's got a narrow point on it. I don't know if you can, yep, you can see that. That tells me that's about a 1/2 inch in it. So if I'm cooking an inch steak, 1.125" steak, I would just want to go down to that. I'm going to come in and I'm going to go right down to that. That's the halfway, that's the middle of the steak.
Forget it.
You can get these MK, let's say you can get these from ThermoWorks. ThermoWorks sells them. A lot of the barbecue stores sell them. And I'm going to come in, and as soon as I make that last flip, I'm going to immediately start probing it. And I'm going to check it in 2 or 3. I'm never going to check the spinalis. I'm going to check out here in the chuck part of it. And I'm going to check it in a couple different places. And all I'm doing is I'm looking for temperature. On a spinalis steak, if I'm looking for a nice medium rare, when it hits about 126 degrees, I'm immediately going to take that steak off, because it's so hot. The steak is warm, and you're cooking on a 557 degree grate, or 575 degree grate. It will carry from 126 to about 134 degrees. That's a nice, good medium rare steak. If you like it to be a little more on the medium side, maybe take it up to about 132 degrees, 133 degrees. That's going to carry it over to about 140, 141. It's going to give you a pretty nice medium. If you like it well done, I don't know. You're going to take it to 155 degrees, and it's going to go to 160. And basically, to me, it's done rump the steak, because you done cooked all the juice out of it. If you're looking for medium rare, you may want to, a rare steak, you're probably going to take it to about 122.
Someone said no.
Yeah, no, we don't ever want to do a well done steak. So I like a medium rare steak, and I will typically pull this off at about 126, 127 degrees. And then I'm going to watch my carryover temperature. Now, I want to talk real quick about carryover temperature, and this is really, really important. Let's say you've done cooked this steak 1:30, or 1:45, 1:45, 1:45, and we just flipped it, and you temp it, and it is nowhere near 127 degrees, and you've done cooked it another 1:45 seconds, and you come over here and temp it and say the steak's only 120 degrees. Well, you can't just keep it on this grill grate, because it's going to darken that mark on that steak's going to be so dark. So we get a half pan, aluminum pan. I poke holes in it with my Thermopin. I poke a bunch of holes in it. I take some butter, and I just rub butter on it so it don't stick. Just smear butter on it. And I'll take that steak off, and I'll set it over here, and I'll pick it up, and I'll just set it up here on top of it. Every time now, I am opening and closing my lid. So when I flip it, I put my lid on. When it start to get close to a minute and 45 seconds, I'll take my lid off and I'll do my flip. I do want to remind you of that. I do put a lid on it every time I flip. But if it's on your fourth flip and you temp it, this is especially if somebody wants a medium steak and you're going to want to take this thing up to 132 degrees, you're going to have to cook it that full time on all four flips. If it's not where it needs to be, you can take it off. You can put it up here on a pan. They've got little wire racks that you can put them on. And when you do that, it gets it where you're not going to keep burning that grill mark into that steak and just turn it jet black and then start eating a lot of char. So you can just lift it, set it up here, keep probing it. When it gets to your desired temperature, take it off and let it rest. Now, when I pulled mine off today, I pulled it off at 128 and it just took off the temperature. I mean, it started climbing on me. It went from 128 to 137, 138 degrees. I didn't put it on no pan. I just held it up in the air on my spatula. They've got a spatula that comes with the grill grates that you can come in here and flip it. And I just literally kept it out in the air where it would cool off. I didn't want it touching any foil. I wanted it to cool as quick as we could to stop the cooking process. So that is how we go about not only cooking our backyard steaks, but that's how the competition guys are doing it as well. These guys are very, very successful. It's 4 flips, about a minute and 30 to a minute and 45 seconds on each flip. The hotter your grill grates are, the less time between each flip. If it was 625 degrees, you're probably going to be flipping that steak every minute and 15 seconds. So when it gets to the temperature that you're looking for, remember, it's cooking hot. The steak's already warm. You're going to have carryover usually of about 5 to 7 degrees. So if it's 130, it's going to probably carry to 137, maybe 138.
So with all this attention on the steaks, how many steaks can you have on the grill at once?
I had cooked, like for Christmas, we cooked steaks last year. And I think I had 6 or 7 on here. Yeah, I had 6, I think, maybe 7. So it's a little tricky when you're cooking a lot, but the way that I did it, I got my grates to where they were about 575 degrees because I knew when I hit it with that many steaks, the first thing it was going to do was drop my temperature of my grill grate. So I sprayed it good. I dropped my steaks and then, we just started timing it and I let it go for I think we went about 2 minutes. I flipped it. And I kind of staggered them. I didn't put them all. I put this one on, waited about 30 seconds. I put this one on, I waited about 30. And then that way, when I flipped, it gave me time to get to each one of them. And then by the time I got back around to this, I flipped it. I looked at my marks. When I first flipped them, my marks weren't real dark. They were kind of brown. So I just said, okay, hey, we went about 2 minutes, made adjustment on the fly. Let's go 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I gave about another 30 seconds. Man, I had beautiful black marks. They were beautiful. And I cooked 6 steaks on it at one time, kind of monitoring my temperature. And, just that's the easiest way to do it. But you can cook multiple steaks. Get used to doing a couple of them at a time. Once you get real familiar with it, it's a lot easier to do 5 or 6 steaks at one time.
And Mike, it looks like we have another question, but real quick, we are at the top of the hour, 2 p.m. I know we said that the event would go till 2. However, Mike, I believe you're available to stay around. So if people want keep asking questions and stay on, we will keep this rolling.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, the steak's already done. That's kind of all the stuff there is to the cooking part of it. Go back up there. Now when I got done, I took my steak out. I put it in a little foil pouch. I just took 2 pieces of tin foil. I crimped them together where I could come in here and keep it warm. This steak's been cooked now I took it off at 240. So it's been resting a very, very long time. But there's our steak. It's got a lot of great juice. I love to put some of that juice on there. Got to be careful with the juice because a lot of times it can wash off your grill marks. But there's the steak. That's what she looks like. Nice grill marks. And we'll cut into it and see what this looks like. I got grill marks on the other side as well.
What are the names of the rubs again?
The 2 rubs that we use is All Queued Up Steak Shape and Be Extreme Steak Dust.
You get extra radiated heat from the lower cross pieces on the grill grates.
The lower Okay, let me see this.
Lower cross.
Oh, the grates that are on the bottom, no, that grill grate's gonna hold its temperature pretty much well. I just put it on top of the grate that comes with the grill and just set the grill grate up on top of it. I've never had any problems with that. But that's what we're looking for. Steak's gonna be really nice. We'll go in here and cut, see what we got for our.
You ever add Worcestershire sauce after flipping?
I do not. So there's our steak. We got a nice, beautiful color. This will get a little bit redder now that we've cut it. But the first thing that you notice, you can probably see it is just very, very juicy. Once again, this steak has been sitting for an hour and 30 minutes, almost an hour and 30 minutes. But that is a very nice, medium rare steak. I've got just beautiful color on it there. I've got beautiful color on it there. And that's what I'm looking for. Now, my spinalis on this one was up here. It was a very small spinalis. I was like, but I used that one to cook, you know, just so I could show you what two really good ones look like. As you see, it's getting a little bit redder because oxygen is hitting that. It just kind of gets a little bit more red. Get done with it. We'll go in here. The first place I'm going to go in is I'm going to dive right over here and I'm going to get on the spinalis. Like I said, this is the most tender part of the steak. I love this part.
Okay, you want to go up there?
And then we come over here. You can just see the juice that's in it. Very juicy. I don't have to squeeze it. I love people that squeeze stuff. You don't want to squeeze it. Let the juice be in it. So get done with that. We'll come over here and cut it and give it a try. I like that outside edge because it's got that rub all the way around the edge. All right, money.
I think speaking for most people on here that we're all drooling over here watching you. Beautiful steak. And how long do you let the meat rest for typically?
Typically now, when I pull my steak off and I've got my temp where I want it, I'm gonna let it carry over to that 7 to 8 degrees and it'll carry over. I will typically want my steak to rest for 5 to 8 minutes. You can rest it in a pan. You don't have to necessarily put it in a pouch like that. Just get you an aluminum pan, put it in it, let them rest. But let that carryover temperature stop first. Don't let this, if it's still carrying over, you don't want to put all them steaks together and wrap them up. That's just more heat and more carryover temperature, right? So put them on a rack, put them up on the side around the edge of the pan to let them stop cooking. And then once they've kind of cooled off after about 5 to 7 minutes, you can drop them down in the pan and wrap them up. So be very, very careful because you start getting 5 or 6 steaks together, that generates a lot of heat and it will continue to carry them up, have the carryover temperature going. And I know a lot of people is asking questions about barbecue. Hey, I'm here for that as well. Let's kind of wrap this up. Does anybody have any questions about what we did with the steak, how we went about doing everything? If you was cooking this on a gas grill, same thing. If you don't have, you can get grill grates for anything. There's a lot of people that have gas grills. You can get grill grates for them. Same thing. Just get your grill grates up to that temperature. If you don't have grill grates, you just got the regular small wire rack, you're not going to get beautiful lines. You'll still get some. Just drop it on there and flip it. That's the main thing. I don't like to flip it this away and this away. I like this, flip, come back, flip, flip. I think it gives it more even cooking than cooking it this away, and then flip it over this away and this away. I want to flip that steak. I get more even cooking on the steak where I get, I mean, if you notice that steak just a second ago, it is a strip of brown on the bottom, a strip of brown on the top. It's the same. And it's just got that nice, beautiful pink color right down the middle of it. So it doesn't matter what you're cooking on. I think somebody had asked a question about smoke. I mean, I use B&B charcoal is what I use. I prefer B&B because it's made from natural oak. The Kingsford stuff is made from more of the charcoal. I don't like the flavor of it. And if you want to add a little piece about the size of a golf ball, you can add a little piece of hickory or pecan. I like hickory. A lot of times right before I drop my steak on, I'll drop a piece of hickory in it to give it a little smoky flavor. Pellet cookers, I don't really use them for pellet cookers. I know some people that'll crank them things up to 550, 560 degrees and put grill grates on them. You can do that, put them up on the top rack, get the grill grates really hot. You can use it, but I prefer to cook them over charcoal.
And it looks like we have a few other questions.
Okay.
So first, what knives are you using? And then
Okay.
we can go to the next question.
All right, let's do that. So this is a Gunter Wilhelm, Gunter Wilhelm, Wilhelm, and this is their Lightning Pro Cut series. This is their, I think this is their 5-inch or 6-inch boning knife. This is their 3.5-inch paring knife. And then the only other knife I use their 8-inch chef knife. For all my barbecue competitions, I use my 8-inch chef knife to trim my entire brisket, from a full-blown brisket down to a competition trim. These knives are probably some of the best knives that I've ever used for the price. I've got some shuns that I will put these things up against. The quality of the steel, and I sharpen mine on a 15-degree angle, and these things are just absolutely wicked sharp. I remember one time I was trimming a bunch of briskets for a big cook-off, and I trimmed 7 briskets with the 8-inch chef knife, and I never touched it with the steel or anything, just the whole time. And by the time I got down to the 7th brisket, it started losing its edge, where it was just getting a little bit harder to cut. And when I saw that, I was like, man, I'm impressed. These knives are phenomenal. So it's Gunter Wilhelm, and it's the Lightning Pro Cut series. 3.5-inch paring knife is great for trimming steaks. This is just a good all-around knife. I've even actually trimmed briskets with this before. And it's great for ribs and stuff like that. And then I love the 8-inch chef knife, the feel, the weight, everything. All right, what was the other question?
The other question is, how do you let the meat rest without it getting too cold? So specifically for larger pieces of meat, does keeping it in foil cause it to continue to cook noticeably?
Are we talking about steak? Steak, obviously, we just kind of explained, put it in a pan. If you got one, you can just put it in a pan and wrap it. You only want to rest the steak for 5 to 6 minutes, 7 minutes. And that's it. I mean, it doesn't hurt. Like I said, this one's been resting for an hour and a half, and it still turned out pretty nice. So steak, I rest for 5 to 8 minutes. You don't necessarily have to put it in a pan and wrap it, because you're going to eat it. It's coming off at 140 degrees. You probably want your temperature to drop. 5 to 7 minutes later, that steak's going to still be 130 degrees. So it's fine to serve your guests. If you're talking about cooking brisket, resting briskets, I will rest my briskets for 1.5 to 2 hours. And the way that I will rest them is I wrap my briskets in extra heavy duty tinfoil. I lay 2 big layers or 2 big pieces out, double it. I put my brisket on, I wrap it. I cook it till it gets probe tender. That's the biggest mistake people make on brisket. They try to cook brisket to a temperature. That's the absolute worst thing that you can do. And everybody on YouTube that tells you cook it to it's this temperature, you cannot do that, because you have no idea what somebody is cooking at. Are they cooking it at 225 degrees? Well, if I cook at 225 degrees, it's going to be a completely different temperature when it's finished than if I'm cooking at 260 degrees, or if I'm cooking at 275 degrees. All of my competition meats, when I do brisket, I cook it at 260 degrees. And I'm going to take my brisket to 211 degrees. That's typically where my briskets are going to finish. 211. A lot of times they're 212 degrees. I'd say probably 90% of the time they're 212. But the main thing is it's probe tender. And I'll kind of explain that with this thermopan. What I'm looking for when I probe it, let me wipe this off. When I stick that brisket and it's still on the smoker and I think it's getting close to done, I'm hold it with my thumb and my forefinger, and I want to be able to push it in, and I want to be able to pull it out like I'm sticking warm butter. If I go in and I'm having to tug to get it out, it's not done. And if you've ever had a brisket that was like eating shoe leather and dry as it could be, it wasn't cooked long enough. So you want it to, when you poke that brisket, it's like sticking warm butter. It'll go in with very little resistance. And when you pull it out, it's just nice. It's not like I'm sticking water, but I've got just a little slight resistance like it's going in, and same thing coming out. A lot of times I'll stick it, it'll go in real easy. But when I'm taking it out, it's coming out, but it's got a little tug. I'll go, okay, give it 20 minutes. I'll come back 20 minutes later. I'll hit it, nice soft going in, coming out. It's done. I take it out. First thing I do is I open my foil. I vent it for about 5 minutes. I'm releasing the steam. I'm also stopping the cooking process. I don't want this, if I keep it wrapped and put it in an ice chest or a Cambro, this thing may carry to 215 degrees. So I open it up. I let the steam out. And then I wrap it back up tight, and I leave a little bitty slit in the top. I pinch my foil all the way down, and I want a little bitty crack about 1 inch long and about 1/8 inch wide. And I pull it up over the brisket, and that allows any steam in it to continue to escape. I'll rest it for 1.5 hours to 2 hours. I'll open my foil open. I've got a big, huge spatula. I'll hook that brisket. I'll put it on my cutting board. I'll let it sit there for just a second. I'll go open my pit. I'll take that brisket and set right on the rack. And I'll usually do that at 260 degrees, 270 degrees for about 10 minutes. And what that does, that dries that brisket and it firms up that bark. And then it comes out on my cutting board, slice it. I got a lot of trophies around here with first place briskets, and I go get my check. So that's how I do my briskets.
All right, so it looks like there's a question about ribs. So Jim is wondering, so he's done the 3-2-1 ribs on the pellet a few times now, but every recipe he follows does not give him the tender ribs.
Yep.
Cooking them for 7 to 8 hours sometimes. Should I increase the grill temp, wrap them earlier? He wants them to fall off the bone. So what would you recommend?
Are you cooking on a pellet cooker, Jim? Did he say a pellet cooker?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're cooking on a pellet cooker, first thing, I don't know what temperature are you cooking at? Did he say?
No.
Okay, plug in Jim. Comment real quick. Is his name Jim?
Yeah.
Or just have him talk if he wants to unmute himself. Jim, are you cooking on? If you're cooking, it depends on the temperature. That's the biggest thing. 3-2-1 never works. Our ribs are done in 4 hours. We don't cook 6-hour ribs. And we cook really good, thick, meaty ribs. We're cooking a St. Louis cut. I don't cook a spare. I cook that chine bone or that brisket bone right off the top. I'm cooking a St. Louis. Typically, this is what we do. We're going to cook our ribs on smoke at 250 degrees on a pellet cooker or even in my big smoker. 250. You start going higher than that, it draws up more on the bone. If you go lower than that, it's not going to render the fat. You've got to render the fat. So I cook my ribs at 250 to 255 degrees. Okay. I do not put my rubs on at night. I put my rubs on literally. I get my ribs out, and we do inject ribs. I dry the injection off. I put my rub on, and it immediately goes on the smoker. Literally, the rub's on for 5 minutes, and it's on the smoker. 250 degrees, and we will spray it after the first 30 minutes with a little duck fat. Just one light spray. You want to keep that rib moist. I will let it go another 30 minutes. I will spritz it with water. Very, very light mist of water. I will open it back up in 30 minutes. One more spray of duck fat. So it's duck fat, water, duck fat, 30-minute intervals. At 2 hours, my ribs are going to come out and I'm going to wrap them. And I'm going to wrap them with at least 8 ounces of your favorite liquid. I cook my ribs meat up in the foil when I wrap. I don't do meat down. But the key is put 8 ounces of liquid in it. You can use apple juice. You can use a mixture of apple juice, some turbinado sugar, and a little bit of honey if you want to do that. You can even add peach nectar. You can do peach nectar and maple syrup. That is a very, very good combination. We use that a lot of times. We'll use peach nectar and maple syrup. If you wanted to, you could do 4 ounces of each one and put that in your rib wrap. That's 6 ounces of peach nectar, 2 ounces of maple syrup. Main thing is 6 ounces or 8 ounces. Wrap them extremely tight. They go back in the smoker. I'm going to cook mine. Once again, I'm holding perfect temperatures on my smoker. If I'm cooking at 255 degrees, I'm going to wrap them. Once they're wrapped, I'm going to check them in 2 hours. I am looking for that temperature to be 211 to 212 degrees in the thickest big end of the rib, not the small end, but the big thick side of that rib. And I'm gonna find the thickest part of that rib, and I'm gonna cook it to 211 degrees. When it hits 211, I'm gonna take it out. This is the one time I do not open my foil. I'll cook 3 racks of ribs. I've got a big, large pan. I'll put them in it, and they go in my Cambro, and I will let them rest for an hour and a half in that liquid. And then when I get ready to take them out, I open my foil up. I take them out of the foil. I put them back on the smoker for 10 minutes to firm them. And well, I take that back. I take them out of the foil. I squirt my sauce on them. I brush my sauce real even. And then I put them back on the smoker for about 10 to 12 minutes to set my sauce and firm up that rib. And then I cut it. But the key with ribs is not taking those things to such a high temperature. We're finding 250 to 255 is the sweet spot on ribs. 2 hours on smoke. Take them when you get done with that. What you looking for? It's over there. 2 hours on smoke. Wrap them. And generally on my ribs, it's another 2 hours and 15 minutes, and my ribs are done every time. I can put my ribs on at 6:45. I take them off at 6:45, 8:50. They come off. It's 2 hours and 5 minutes. It takes me 10 minutes to wrap my 3 racks of ribs. They go back on at 9 o'clock, and at 11:15 to 11:10, I'll probe them. And generally between 11:10 and 11:15, my ribs are done. So it's usually 2 hours and 10 minutes to 2 hours and 15 minutes. And that's cooking a good, thick, meaty rib. And if you get a thinner rib, it's going to cook a little bit faster. But I try to get good, thick ribs. So that also has a lot to do with it. You will find that by spritzing them ribs, it keeps them from getting tough on the outside when you spritz them with duck fat. And also when you put that much liquid in them, it keeps all the juice from cooking out of them. It makes the rib more tender. They will absolutely melt in your mouth. The last competition I cooked 3 weeks ago, I had a 3rd place chicken, a 2nd place brisket, a 1st place rib. I grand championed it.
That's amazing. Thank you so much indeed for that. I took, the verbatim notes effectively about, and I look forward to trying it on the weekend. My only follow-up question is, would that differ for beef ribs if I was going to do a beef rib, or would you alter that in any way? I mean, other than obviously the ingredients.
Yeah, beef ribs is completely different. You have to do those 100% different. So if you really are wanting to see some of the stuff we do, if you go to bbqchamps.com, our website, we've got some videos on there. And one of them we do have, it's our individual backyard barbecue classes. And it's $7.98. And we show you how to cook Texas style beef ribs. We do a prime rib. We got 20 different recipes on there. You get the video. It's like a 30-minute video. We just walk you right through it. The way that we typically do, we kind of treat it like a brisket. If it's beef ribs, we're going to put our rub on. We're going to put it on the smoker. We're going to give it a couple hours. We're going to do the same type wrap. We're going to wrap it up with some beef broth and stuff like that. And then we're going to cook it typically once again until it's like 210 degrees. We want it nice and pro tender. And when it gets there, it's succulent. It'll melt in your mouth. So basically, to me, I treat my beef ribs like I do a brisket. It's basically, brisket on a bone, as far as I'm concerned. So, but yeah, you will definitely need to practice on the beef ribs. Those I will cook on a smoker because I'm trying to get a lot of smoke in it. So I will cook it at 250, about 250 to 260 to 270, usually about 2 hours. When the color starts to get really nice on them, that's when I'm going to wrap it. It's generally about an hour in the foil. It's about a 3 hour on beef ribs. I'll rest them for about an hour before I cut them, and they'll fall off the bone. They'll be so good. But if you really are wanting help to see this, if you go to bbqchamps.com, we've got some amazing recipe in our backyard barbecue recipes, and that's one of the ones we did. We did a ribeye, we did a prime rib, and we did beef ribs. Got a lot of different recipes on there. If you just want one class, it's like $7.98. And you have the class. You can watch it as many times as you want. They don't expire. You own them. And we've got classes on there for ribs, for brisket, for pork butt, for chicken, from world champion pit masters. They will show you exactly how they go about doing it. I'm talking about how to make up championship injections, how to inject them, how to put the rubs, how to layer them, how to cook them, wrap them. it really does put you on the fast track to cooking some of the best food that you've ever had in your life.
I will absolutely sign up. Thank you so much for that. One final question, sorry. I did a boneless leg of lamb on the weekend as well, and I took it off at 124, 125. Let it rest. I cut it open in the center, and it was perfectly pink, medium rare, beautiful. By the time I served it, though, it went like a boot leather. I don't know what went wrong.
Yeah, it oxidized. It went kind of gray on you, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so what we do is you can have, like that au jus that you saw on this board. One of the key things is basting it, and don't cut it and have it sitting for 30 minutes before your guests. If I'm going to cut a rack of lamb, and yours was boneless, a lot of times we'll use the bone, and we'll French it, and we'll just cut it and put it on the plate. Cut it and put it on the plate. A lot of times, if you take it and baste it a little bit, it'll kind of seal it, and it kind of keeps it from oxidizing. You have to do that on brisket. When I'm cutting my brisket for competition, I cut all the brisket, I take the slice, I lay it, and I take the au jus that was in my foil, and I baste that brisket. I take the next slice, I baste that brisket. So by basting that brisket, I'm keeping it from oxidizing. I'm keeping it from drying out. You take a brisket, I figure brisket's 160 degrees typically when I'm cutting it. If I have a 160-degree piece of meat that's opened up to the air, it's going to dry out immediately on the outside, right? And when it dries out, it's tough. So if you take it and slice it and baste it, pull it, slice it, bake it, all your slices are done, just stack them on top. I stack them on top of each other. The reason I'm stacking them on top of each other, I'm keeping air from getting to that slice. And the last slice that's on top, I'll take a dummy slice that I'm not going to use in my box, and I'll put it on there just to seal that. I can usually go about 7 to 9 high. We have to put 9 in our box. So I'll go 7, and then I'll make another stack over here with 2 more, and I'll put a piece up on top till I get ready to start putting them in the box. But that's probably what happened. It doesn't sound like your temperature went very high. That's just typical with a lot of meat. Sometimes you got to be real careful. I didn't know how this one was going to react, sitting for as long as it did, but color is beautiful on this. It's nice, perfect, medium rare. And you notice these actually got brighter. When I first cut that, it wasn't this bright, but steak does a little bit different. It's beef. And a lot of times when you first cut it, it'll get a little bit brighter as it sits.
Superb. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
And if you're looking at French rack of lambs, that is another one of our classes that we did. We did a French rack of lamb. It was taught by Sterling Smith. He is a 2-time Australian lamb champion. He's won it. I think he won it back-to-back years. And he shows you how to go about doing this awesome French rack of lamb. So it's pretty cool. You can learn a lot of stuff from these guys.
Well, thanks so much, Mike. We appreciate you staying on a little bit longer, and thanks to everybody else that stayed on and asked some questions. I think if there's no other questions, we can go ahead and wrap up. Again, Mike, thank you so much. This was amazing.
I appreciate it. I really do. I hope everybody's learned a little bit about steak, the 2 different kinds, the spinalis and the tri-heart. It's really important. Always go for the tri-heart. Practice on getting your rubs right. Don't be scared. I mean, even as much rub as I put more on this steak than I did on those. It's still, to me, not quite salty enough. I like a really good salty pop on my steak. So, but it'll probably be perfect for the average person. I just like that bold flavor. But to me, getting together with family and friends and loved ones is what it's all about. To me, that's what barbecue is all about. Having family and friends and loved ones over, building those relationships, getting out and having a lot of fun. And I've had a great time today. I hope I've answered everybody's questions, and I hope everybody's learned something. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks so much, Mike. And as a reminder, we will be sending this out to everybody afterwards. So you will be able to get your hands on this. And thank you very much. Hope everybody has a great rest of your Thursday.
Thank you.
Enjoy that steak, Mike.
I am. Appreciate it.
Myself.